Tell us about yourself and what motivated you to run for the Arizona State Legislature.
So I've been the mayor of Chandler for I'm on my eighth year. I've got 9 years on council before then. I've been a pastor in Chandler, a nonprofit director, pastor for 41 years, nonprofit director for our city Chandler, and I helped start for our city or for our town, Gilbert, back in the day. I'm running for the state for several reasons. I really believe in people closest to the people should be in charge. I believe that local politics are where it's at. If Gilbert shut down for a week, people would know. When the feds shut down, we hear about it in different things, but local is where it's at. I believe I've learned a lot as the mayor. I am able to get things done in an acrimonious situation, and I am a future focused, forward thinking, common sense kind of guy. And I think I can use those skills to move the ball forward, to get things done quicker without all the hassles at a state level.
Okay. What professional or personal experiences best prepare you to represent the business community in Gilbert and the East Valley?
Well, as I mentioned, I've been mayor for and on council for quite a few years. As the lead pastor of a church for many decades, it in essence is a small business. I oversaw staff, ran a budget, took care of all those things with boards that come with it. So, in that sense, I've ran a business. I have been very business friendly in my roles as mayor. I believe as mayor, my job is to, and has been to provide stability as well as certainty. I believe the business community craves those things and needs those things to be able to plan, and seemingly government gets further and further away from that. I believe that I can add both of those things through my example and through my focus, and hopefully over time change the dial. That would be my goal.
Okay. Arizona has built a reputation as a pro-business state. What policies do you believe are most important to maintain Arizona's economic competitiveness and ensure that businesses continue to invest and create jobs in Gilbert and throughout the state?
Sure. Well, in my role as mayor, again, I'm very intimate with businesses. I work very closely with larger companies like Intel that are an economic multiplier that serve the Chandler, Gilbert, and surrounding region. As I've mentioned, I believe that certainty and stability are things essential for businesses. I know that whether that comes to what's their bottom line, what do they have to pay, whether that is water, whether that are fees from cities. I believe that, again, being closest to the people, I am in a good position to understand, as well as work to try to be an ally of the business community and to the much possible keep costs down. Now realize we're in a really weird position right now, especially Gilbert with the water costs and bills that are out of control. How I've done that differently in Chandler is a lot of information and incremental growth and a lot of upfront investments rather than on the back end that certainly seems to smart more. In the state, I really want to focus on longer term issues like water security, like infrastructure, making sure that we have the power essential. Those are probably the big three for me in terms of long term planning, that without the ability for transportation, the assurance of water, and the essentiality of power, businesses can't make it work in Arizona. So I will be an ally and a proponent of all those things.
Thank you, Mayor Hartke. Next question. What role should the legislature play in the strengthening workforce pipelines through K-12 education, community colleges, universities, and career training programs?
I obviously I also serve on the Arizona Commerce Authority right now in my other role as president of the League of Cities. So in Chandler and in that role and working with legislatures, I think we all believe that we should be involved in working and training the workforce of tomorrow. I know in Chandler, I've been quite instrumental in terms of internships with the cities, working with Chandler Gilbert Community College. And sorry, yes, it's still Chandler Gilbert Community College, despite what Torgerson or others will try to get me to say. I think that there's a lot of possibilities and programs available. I'm a big believer that not every kiddo is going to go to college, and we need to make sure that training programs, whether it's in welding, whether it is in plumbing, electricians, that those also need to be considered. I think there is, to me, certainly what I do best as mayor and in government is to be a collaborator with the private industry to understand where the needs are and see how we can work together and help meet the needs.
What role should the state play in supporting transportation and water infrastructure and other key systems necessary for continued business growth?
Well, we can't do it without the state. And certainly what we're now seeing with Central Arizona project, I'm a critic of the fact that we have not been more proactive with water. With Ducey set up this WIFA fund that had a $500 million in there, and it is frittered, it has not been replenished. And I think it is the job of the state to make sure that statewide things, whether it's ADOT and transportation, or certainly assurance of water. We can't do that as cities where our hands are tied. We have great authority to control water that comes to us, but concerning the larger issues, our hands are tied. So I want to work and solve big problems like water assurances without interfering with local control. Now, I realize that in saying that, I think we're all realize we're facing this water shortage. And I don't want to get ahead of cities. I certainly want to work with them. I believe in menus, not mandates. And I'll be applying those types of things in working with cities and businesses with transportation, making sure that cities continue to get HERF funds, as well as, again, the water security. That to me is probably the biggest long-term issue in front of us.
Perhaps building on these topics a bit more, would you please provide a specific transportation or infrastructure project that you feel is important to our community?
Sure. So a year ago at this time, I chaired MAG. And during my tenure as the chair, I pushed and promoted and worked my butt off to get Prop 479 passed, which is the half-cent sales tax that benefits everything in the east and west of the Valley of Maricopa County. And I really fought, in particular in this role, to make sure that there was balance to this. There was so much need everywhere, but particularly on the eastern end of Gilbert and Mesa and Queen Creek, getting that freeway continued that will put Queen Creek more on the map is essential for us. The widening of 202 right now from the 101 to Val Vista is essential. And these are projects that I've championed. And with this 20-year plan, as I mentioned, it was essential to me that this didn't just go out to the West Valley, whether it is I-30 or the intersections around TSMC. We need to continue to make sure that the East Valley, that statistically puts a lot more money into the sales tax things that will benefit the entire valley's transportation, that we get our fair share and representative to make sure that we're still able to get people around. Our density is greater and our need is just as great.
Switching gears, when it
I
comes to
love gears.
housing, when it comes to housing availability and workforce housing, what policies, if any, should the state consider instating to improve housing supply while maintaining appropriate roles for local communities in planning and zoning decisions?
Well, as the mayor and as well as the president of League of Cities, I am getting briefed and I am lobbying and unfortunately writing far too many letters to the governor to stop the state from preempting cities. Look, we all believe that we housing is something that we need or want in our community. The missing middle, where when I moved to Chandler 41 years ago, I bought a house for gasp, wait for it, $64,000. I couldn't afford the same house that I live in today. And so I think that there are things that need to be restored in terms of being able to incentivize or help our kids. We all want our kids and grandkids to be able to live in the community that they grew up in. But I'll say again, I believe in menus and not mandates, and it's the state style to treat Phoenix the same as Superior or Glendale, the same as Gilbert. We have unique identities, and people choose to live in our communities for different reasons. And I think we need to uphold and honor and recognize the fact that people want to live in Gilbert for specific reasons, whether it's large lots or the community pride or whatever it is that makes Gilbert special, or Chandler, or downtown Phoenix, whatever it is that it's a mistake to try to treat every city the same and to interfere or interrupt what people want. People vote on general plans on all these cities, and general plans include these types of things. So again, I want to work with and provide menus of opportunities and even where there's opportunities to speed up. I think every city, every town wants to hasten the process. Nobody wants to be the slow one in the process that is stopping development from happening, desired development happen in our community. So I reject the fact that cities are obstructionist. If anything, we're the reasons that we have economic growth and the places where people want to live.
Thank you.
Well, how do you view the balance between state authority and local decision making when it comes to economic development, housing, and business regulation?
Sure. Um, there are big goals. I have no question. And that's where, again, I'll go back to give us menus if there are statewide goals rather than mandates that's going to try to treat everyone the same. There are some places where it makes sense that the state should have operational control. Since I've been mayor, for example, the state took over sales tax collection. And I fought that at first, but I do understand that it doesn't make business sense that a Circle K has to go through 90 through 92 different unique processes for the 92 municipalities around our state. There are some places where it just is, it makes business sense that you shouldn't have to run through 92 different hoops in order to comply for tax regulation or tax collection. Those kind of things make sense to me. When it comes to housing, I think there needs to be a collaboration and not just hard and fast goals. I'm still mixed on the Gov's plan on the ag to urban, for example, because those areas were going to be at some time, if they were not incentivized, they're going to be urban anyway. And yet we have allowed them to take a shortcut to get more groundwater that will affect, for example, Queen Creek, that will affect Chandler, that will affect Gilbert. But I appreciate and I laud Queen Creek on doing the responsible thing and going after the water from Hartke so that they don't have to suck more groundwater out. So it can work, but cities have to be responsible and future focused too, because the shortcuts just aren't going to get things done for us. And our goal is to make this a great state, a great community, a great city that people want to live in, where they can afford that, or to work in.
Well, and I was going to say, can you share a specific issue you hope to champion when it comes to the balance between local and state? But you kind of highlighted on that already. But if you want to
Yeah,
share
two of them.
anything else, yeah, if you
Yeah,
want to share
let
any
me
more
see.
with that.
I can pick on housing as a good example. I don't think this affects Gilbert as much, although it might, is that recently the state, and we were somewhat in agreement with the league that carved out like 4 square miles of downtown, that there would be a greater ability for duplexes, triplexes on single lots. Okay, we fought over that a lot. And a good example where this to me wouldn't fit, and again, I'm a bit ignorant on historical neighborhoods in downtown Gilbert, but I then went and fought back and said this doesn't make sense in order to take something that really represents our community's history and then strip that away by adding these other things that someone could bulldoze down a great house that meant much to history and put in a triplex or quad book. If Frank Lloyd Wright owned something in Gilbert, it ought to be protected. If the founders owned something in Gilbert, by the way, I'm still curious. I've heard AJ Chandler has a house in Chandler Heights. I want to visit that thing. I've heard of it and have not been there. But to me, that would be a third example to follow the previous two.
Well, what now you've highlighted on this a little bit too when it comes to water management, but what role should the legislator play in supporting responsible water management while ensuring that communities like Gilbert can continue to attract businesses and residents?
Yeah, it's it's a dance and it takes all of us working together. I think none of us in cities want the state to just come down and say, you can no longer water usable ground. I think as cities, we're all looking hard to say, how can we save water? How can we pull out, non-usable turf, for example? It's just grass because it's always been grass. But local control ought to be the decider. Nobody in downtown Phoenix or a group of legislators who don't live in Gilbert should be making decision about the values and importance in Gilbert. Would they be in the right place to say, hey, cities, we are facing a water shortage, and we would require every city to work forth a plan that cuts such and such amount. I mean, I could see something like that if a statewide issue down to cities, but allow cities to decide how we get there. There's some turf that we could all decide that it's just there because it's pretty or because we haven't gotten around to it. It doesn't help. In fact, it's going to kill us if this HRC, what is it, 2016, that takes away cities' rights to regulate taxes, or fees and rates. That is going to crush all of us, particularly when it comes to water. And I am working my butt off to keep that thing alive. Keep it dead, I mean.
Well, and our last question, what is one policy issue affecting Arizona business community that you believe the legislature should prioritize over the next 2 years?
Well, I think that I guess I addressed several in terms of the infrastructure and certainly water. But again, I'll go back to one of my original statements. Businesses, if they're going to expand or maintain, if they're going to make hard decisions, they need to understand the future to the best of the ability, and they need to be able to plan accordingly. So it behooves government, from local, the cities to the state, to provide the amount of as much security as we can, as much certainty as we can. And I believe that we can do a better job of communicating. I reject this misnomer that says that cities and the state are enemies. It seems to play out that we're the tail that the dog waves, where when asked and pushed, at the end of the day, everyone down on the Capitol agrees that local control should prevail. I think localists and local government leaders understand business needs in their community far better than anyone else. I am on the phone all the time, whether it's helping someone that they just need to know where they are and it's communication, and they want to know what does it take to get that certificate of occupancy, to certainty amongst local government so that you've got whatever it is that's being zoned. You don't have people changing course mid-stride, that they know that they're required to do this. They've got to put this type of standpipe in, that they need to do these kind of electrical things, that this is code and not. And whether it's local control from Gilbert officials or statewide, we just can't move the end game. We can't move the finish line. It's got to be consistent and it's got to be understood. And to me, that's what businesses really desire, is certainty and stability.